Hello, everyone, and welcome to the stream. My name is Mike D'Angelo. Today, we are going to be looking at the new map that we're going to be dropping later this week, Coastal Cave. For those of you who are watching this stream for the first time or are watching this video on YouTube for the first time, the way that I work my maps is every other week, I kind of do like a zigzagging pattern. So the first my A weeks, I will do a map that's in a location in the world of Tellus that I'm working in that doesn't quite have a map yet, and then on my B weeks we go back to a place that we've been before and we make a sequel map. It usually connects in some way to one of the previous maps, so we do those kind of things. The map that we're dropping this week actually is going to drop before the one that we were working on last week, which was the jungle fighting ring. This week, the Coastal Cave is going to be the map that drops this Thursday, and then jungle fighting ring is going to drop next Thursday. I actually already have the Coastal Cave done up, but what I'm going to do is kind of show you the steps that I took to get there. Depending on how quickly we wrap things up, I might give a real quick preview of what the Coastal Cave looks like in its finished form, or if I like it enough, what we do today, it might be a variant. It might replace what I did before. We'll just we'll wing it and we'll see where we go from there. But generally speaking, I always use this size Battlemap, this 40 by 20 grid, because it sizes really nicely with something that we have on the Etsy store, which is a giant, like a jumbo-sized gamepad that typically people are using for mouse pads for their computer station and stuff like that. But it works really well for a D&D style mat. We haven't used it for any of our personal ones yet, but I've been collecting a few because we're going to do some of our live gaming again soon. And I'm really excited to kind of bundle a couple of them up together. They're relatively affordable. When you get them through us, you get a list of POIs, which we talk about during the stream anyway. So if you're following us on Twitch or on YouTube, you kind of get an idea of what those things are. But if you're seeing them way down the line, or you're just buying off of Etsy real quick, you get an idea. I send you digital files that show you, hey, these are the things that you want to focus on for your map to build out your story. But you don't have to follow those. You can do your own thing. I don't ever want people to feel railroaded by the content that I'm creating. But I also want to make sure that even as light as I go with some of the stuff on my maps, I don't want to overwhelm people. But I want to show that there's things that could happen, even if there's only 4 little things on the map. So what we're going to do today is show you on the Coastal Cave map how you can accomplish that. So what we're going to do is we've got excuse me one second. We've got a template laid out for us already with the kind of beach layer that I have and that I wanted. The next step that we're going to go is we're going to get this other beach layer that kind of looks a little bit wetter, a little bit like, the waves have cascaded over it and everything like that. And what we're going to do is we're not too worried about messing with the opacity or anything here. So we're just going to completely draw over a piece of this beach. I don't want it to be completely straight. I want it to be kind of uneven. And the way that I did the original map that I worked on, I wanted to make sure that it had kind of an angle to it, because I don't want everything to just feel straight up and down. I want everything to kind of feel like it has natural movements and everything like that. So what we're going to do is just kind of get an idea of where the beach kind of gets hit by waves and things like that. And our Coastal Cave needs a cave, so it's going to end up in one of these bottom corners. It's kind of going to be the opposite way that the Cliffside Cave went. So Cliffside Cave was to the north, the Coastal Cave is going to be to the south. Don't know exactly where on this map yet. If I do it the same way that I did with my trial one, we'll probably put that in the bottom right corner. But I'm going to just tweak this a little bit, mess with that a smidge. Now, I am going to mess with the opacity when it comes to the water layer, just because I don't want everything to just look completely like it was overrun by waves. So what we're going to do is figure out where this water layer is going to kind of find its home, and we're going to run over it a couple times. I feel like I'm probably going to bump up that opacity and just make life a little bit easier for myself. We want a little bit of that sand layer to kind of shine through, but not all of it. When you're looking at the water at the beach, you can kind of see some of the sand shine through, depending on what kind of beach you're at. If you're at a I'm not going to name names, but certain shores are not the cleanest or anything like that. So you have to make sure that you're at a nice non-polluted beach, something along those lines. In a world like Tellust, where no one's throwing pollutants into the water or anything like that, you should relatively see some clean water, things like that. The next step that we're going to do actually is we're going to throw some waves in there. So we're going to go to, there's actually just an object called waves that we're going to pull out, and I'm on the brush layer, so I need to step that out real quick. So we'll go to the stamp layer, and we're going to look for some waves. And we're just going to use these waves here. There's some nice stuff that I like about this, and what we're going to do is just kind of throw these into place, and we'll clean up what we see as we go. So like right now, you can see there's that watercolor underneath that really doesn't need to be there. So we're going to put the sand back there. We're going to randomize these a little bit. Well, you know what? I'm not even going to randomize them. We're just going to kind of pick them and move across the map as needed. So yeah, after we're done with some of this, what we'll end up doing is pulling back some of that blue underneath, because the idea of the waves cresting should mean that the water isn't there. It's got like the deeper color of the sand, but not the water. So what we'll end up doing is just kind of keep going across. I don't want to get nothing but small waves, so we're going to go back to like the big one more time. Let's see. I've got a couple of other ones up here that we'll use. And we'll do this one over here. That's a nice big one. And if you watch my other streams, I typically do not like to kind of reuse the same ones side by side. So that's why I'm using some of these, other ones kind of interspersed in there. I'm going to move that one a little bit out just to kind of end what we're doing here. And then what we're going to do is just to have some kind of foamy looks on top of the edges of some of these. We'll use these guys. It'll give it a more natural kind of feel to it. And these ones will just kind of rotate as we go. And when I say rotate, I mean through the stamps, not the actual angle of those little wave splashes that we have. Okay, one more ought to do it. On my the map that I'm going to have sent out on Thursday, again, unless I change my mind, and I like this one so much more, we didn't use as many of these, but I just kind of felt like putting them in there. A lot of the fun that you're going to have with Inkarnate, or any map making software for that matter, is going to be just experimenting, seeing what you like. And there's a lot of cool things that you can find by playing around with what you're building. So we've got a nice kind of base here. Like I mentioned, we're going to kind of pull back from what we did here. So I'm going to save. Once I get to around 40 or so, I feel like saving. I don't run into too many problems with Inkarnate, but every now and then, just with, as with anything else, if you wait too long and you lose everything, it's kind of disheartening. It used to happen to me a lot before I got gung-ho about these kind of things with my writing projects. I used to do like a cartoon back in the day that wasn't fantastic by any stretch of the word or anything like that, but I had fun with it, and once that happened, it kind of ruined everything for me. So one of the things is, you can see like I'm getting pretty close to the waves, but like not really going over it. I didn't need to do that. The waves kind of give you that nice look anyway. And usually because of that, you have a little bit more flexibility to draw over top of it anyway. So you'll see a lot of the blue. We're going to get away from there. You can play with certain things on this kind of style map where, like, maybe some of the land was a little, it had descended a little bit more. We just did a whole bunch of stuff with the jungle fighting ring where the island descends into kind of like that swampy water, and there's no reason that the beach couldn't have, like a couple of grooves. Usually, a natural beach formation is not going to have those because everything evens out because of the water, but there's no reason that you couldn't have had like a boat just land on this beach and cause like a groove, and maybe they dragged it up shore or something like that. There's any number of reasons that things like that could happen. But so what we have now is a nice base. We are going to, give me 1 second. I am going to look at my old image, and the next steps that we're going to do, we need that cave. So we're going to grab our cave. And you can see so far all I've been doing is working on the background layer. I typically don't work on the foreground layer unless I'm trying to make like a very clear separation of one thing to the other. There's really not like a huge amount of reasons for me to feel like I need to do that. Certainly when it comes to kind of planning out, you'd want to see like for instance the cliffside cave. I knew that I needed a background layer because I was doing the variations of a very distant background layer where you're looking at the far ground below, or lava or water or something like that, and you want that clear separation. Or in the case of the jungle fighting ring or the sunken temple, that the islands are going to be separate from the water layer. In this case, you didn't really need to do that. If you were going bigger with this map, if you weren't doing a 20 by 40, but you were doing a huge map where you knew that there was going to be like an island out to sea that your players could get to, you might change the way that you were doing that, and that's perfectly fine. So one of the things that you're going to see here is, if I can get the darn thing to work, I'm going to use these cliffs that you can see in the terrain pack. They have this kind of green foliage layer that doesn't really make a lot of sense with where we're at right now. And one of the ways that you can kind of clear that out is if you check this, if you uncheck this clip mask, it gives you that nice sandy layer instead. So you don't have to feel like you're stuck with that. You have to do it for everyone. It doesn't preserve that as you move from one to the other. So I'll have to uncheck the clip mask here. Same thing as I go around. And what I'm going to end up doing is, because we're trying to do this with the cave, we're going to kind of go up layer by layer. I want it to feel like it's not just the bottom layer of this cliff that's, got these rocky, pieces coming out. So we will come over here and finish this off with the no clip. And something like that looks nice. And now we're going to build up to the next layer. And one way that we're going to make sure that this looks good is we're going to bring that up one of the layers on top of just, building it behind it. So we're going to do the same thing. Get rid of the clip mask. You're going to have a little bit of overhang sometimes, and that's okay. It'll look more natural that way anyway. This actually is coming together really quick. When I was doing kind of like my experimental layer with things, it didn't quite work out that way. I'm not going to use that because we just used that on the opposite side. But so I did mention we have kind of like this overlay where it's going to come out past the layer below, and that's fine. I mean, most things in nature have that kind of feeling where it's not, there's not a lot of uniformity. I like consistency and things like that, but there's consistency in chaos sometimes. So what we'll do is that, and then we're going to add one more layer. Let's see how this one looks. So we'll bring this up to layer 3, again with the no clip on, and I'm going to turn this a smidge so it kind of rests on top of that layer. We'll see if I like it at the end of this. That actually doesn't look terrible, but once we move into these kind of offshoots, is it still going to look all right? I'm not 100% sure. I feel like that's okay. I want to do one more little piece. And that actually looks pretty good. I don't want to do the same thing on the other side. So what we'll do is, that one's the same as the one below. So we'll do this one. This one has a nice look to it. So we'll angle this a little differently, get rid of the clip. Maybe do this one. Nope, same thing as the one above. So we'll move to something else instead. Oh, my poor dog. She's going to lose her mind. I heard the first fireworks of the night. It's all right. That's what she's drugged up for. All right. So this is going to go a little bit over. And again, that's okay. And then what we're going to do, again, we're at around that 40 level. We're going to save. Maybe, if it'll let me. I'm going to hydrate. It's not as hot in my room as it was yesterday when I was doing Talking Tellist, but it's I'm still feeling the sweat on my brow. Probably about halfway through this stream, I'll take a minute to kind of breathe and go downstairs and get a little bit of fresh air, dab my face like a Kentucky lawyer. So what we're going to do now, I don't want the cliffs to look all sandy. I want them to have a more natural kind of stone feel. There might be some sand on like the lower layers, and what we'll do is, as we're working on putting like that nice like gray color on there, for the lower levels we'll just do a smaller opacity, and then as we go up we'll bring that up a little bit. And what we'll also do is down in the cave itself, we're going to say that, almost like a snowdrift, there's not sand going all the way through. Like it stops a little bit of the way through. So we'll see. I think it's this color that I have used before. Oh, I can hear my dog right outside the room. All right, so we are going to, as I mentioned, kind of start to paint. I'll do under the cliff first. So we'll just do that in the shadows, and that's kind of where that makes the most sense. And then what we'll do is I'm going to drop this down to 40. I'd rather do a couple of passes and clean it up that way than overdo it and then have to change my mind later. So we're going to start to do that. I actually should have just kind of gone over everything, and then just I'll raise the opacity later, but we'll do one more pass on that bottom level just so that it has a little bit more of a gray look to it. And then what we're going to end up doing is there's that kind of broken terrain brush that I really like. We'll end up using that. So we'll bump this up to 60 for that next level. And we'll probably end up doing 2 passes for this too, just to kind of give it a little bit of extra color. I don't mind so much having, like the pieces that are in the beach layer. Like you can kind of see the shells and stuff that are hanging out in there. I kind of feel like they're just kind of fossilized. Now, that was a little bit too much, so I'm going to bring this up to like 50 before I do the next pass, because I don't want it to be too overwhelming. So we'll do one more. You see just a touch of that shell there. You should see a little bit of this kind of like ammonite feature there. Now on the top layer, where it's going to be mostly stone, you're not going to see that. I'm still going to do, the not quite full opacity, but I'm going to do 2 takes. It's going to do the same thing anyway. Like there's not going to be too much that you're going to see. So let's see, move that over. Matt is like really good about like keeping on these streams, because he catches when I'm like missing a kind of, it's almost like you're airbrushing and it's like easy to miss those kind of things. You can see like there's definitely a darker spot here, so I'm going to skip over that as I finish up this layer. And it's kind of like the nice thing about the opacity, like not doing like a full pass when you're doing it, is again it kind of gives you like those natural colors if you're missing little bitty spots. Here you can see there's like a streak that doesn't make a lot of sense, so I'll do one pass, and then it kind of looks a little better there. If you're just missing tiny little spots, I don't know, there's something about that kind of looks a little bit more natural to me, so it doesn't bother me so much. Now I can see, looking at the original work that I did compared to this one, there's some some clear differences. So when, depending on if we finish this today, if we finish it tomorrow, I'm going to show you the comparison of where we ended. I feel like when you're working on these things, you almost never want them to be the same. You always want to kind of explore new things that you're doing. But the first thing that we're going to end up doing is going back to the brush, going to that cracked layer. I can't remember if that is the layer that I'm trying to do. So let's try and go to the size. That ought to give us, yeah, that's kind of what we want to do. So we'll size that down a little bit. And again, we'll go to the opacity. We're going to bring that down to about 50. And then the same thing as before, we're going to do some smaller passes down below. We'll do more passes up front or up top to kind of give it a more stony feel instead of like having layers of sand over top. I feel like this isn't even really the cracked layer. Like there's still more that we can do. So let's see. I might have not done like a full cracked layer. This might have been like the like a dungeon layer that I kind of liked because it does kind of the same thing. Now on my original map, there was a deeper kind of indentation for that third layer. I just kind of got swept up by what I was doing, which is a good thing. So I'm going to give us a little bit more texture than I did in the original. And then what we'll do is kind of the next step that I did was add one of those big boulders, just because I wanted it to feel a little bit more, varied. So we'll put that up there. Maybe we'll do a couple of other stones later, just to kind of, add some character. One of the other things that I did was, as I mentioned earlier in the stream, I wanted to make sure that there were 4 points of interest in all my maps. And what I did to kind of make that work on the coastal cave was the coastal cave is obviously one of them. That's the big one. That's the feature. I did a kind of carved up, ship that had, broken into pieces. I did a buried treasure somewhere on the map. And I did kind of like contraband that pirates had brought on shore. When you look at it, it just looks like bottles, barrels of rum. But the GM would be able to say, hey, when you're playing around with these barrels, you can tell they're not filled with liquid; they're filled with some kind of item. So, is it a weapon? Is it treasure? Is it something else? That's up to the game master to decide. But it gives you one more thing that you can talk about in your map when you're making those kind of things. So what we'll do is, I think we'll start with I might have to go on intermission because my mother-in-law is calling. I actually can see if my wife is on the channel. Ms. Ree, do me a favor and call your mother. While I'm working on this, we are going to switch over to these sharp rocks. These are kind of nice because what we'll be able to do is kind of bash up a boat on screen with this. So let me go over to my original just so I can see what I'm working with. Now I gave myself a little less room to work with on this map that we're working with, and that's perfectly fine. Give me 1 second. I am going to go on intermission for 2 seconds. Alrighty, sorry about that. I had a situation with my mother-in-law having to get a hold of my wife for the cutest reason. She made it sound like it was this huge emergency, and it was just Rihanna's contacts had come in. So, perfect. I do have my dog in here now, so if there's any excessive sniffing around, I apologize. She's she's real excited to be in here because she doesn't usually hang in here when I'm on my stream or anything like that. But we'll see how it goes. She's shifting me around in the seat as we talk. All right, so we kind of left off. I was going to put together some sharp rocks for a boat to kind of smash up on. So what we'll do is kind of layer these a little bit. So I'll put this on a lower layer so it looks like... let me see. I'm going to compare it to the map that I did before. I feel like it doesn't quite look right. So I'm going to tweak that a little bit more. That looks a little better. So what we'll do is get a couple of pieces of ship, which it doesn't look like I have hanging out anywhere. Which is weird because I felt like I did that after. Anyway, I'm talking to myself. So it should be part of the pirate set, I believe. Now, I didn't do this huge shipwreck or anything like that. I did a little broken piece. This would be a much bigger map that I was doing, maybe like an underwater map or something like that, or something where like that was the huge focal point. You know, having the cave there kind of draws enough attention away where it doesn't make a lot of sense to have that. Where is that piece? There is. What I might end up doing is taking a step away from this map, looking at the other one. Maybe instead of ship, we'll do boat. There. Nope, I lied. That's close, but... Oh, you know what? That is what I used before. All right, so here's what we'll do. We're going to blow that up a little bit, make it like it's, you know, not like a little tiny rowboat, but like a small crew is moving around. Ow. We'll move this up a layer so it looks like it can get stuck on the rocks like that, and then what we'll end up doing is... Do you want to go out? Give me 1 second. She was trapped in here for days. So yeah, what we're going to do is kind of make it look like it was, you know, two halves of the same boat smashed up on these rocks. Over time, maybe they moved a little bit. What we're going to end up doing is kind of making it look like, you know, over time, eventually on the shore, something would have kind of dislodged it from these. So the next step is to take some smaller stones. So what we'll do is, I think these guys I used on the other map, we'll lower the layer. So these look like they're trapped underneath. Ooh. Lower layer. And then we're going to drop the size down a bit. But we want it to look like pieces of the boat kind of got lodged on these stones as well. So we're going to do something like that. You can see that the angle of the rocks and the stamps themselves are automatically rotating, so we're not kind of stuck with anything. We're going to put enough of these in there where it looks like, hey, like it's kind of like it's not symbiotic in the way that, you know, living things would be, but certain pieces here have kept the stones here and certain pieces have kept the ship here, so that's what's kind of making sense here. Now my computer is angry at me right now, so just give me 1 second to have words with it. There you go. We'll do like one more over here. So that kind of gives it that nice look where, all right, I understand why it's stuck on those rocks like that. Let's come down here and we'll do a save. It's been 46 changes. And then the next thing after that, you certainly know that I like to kind of mess with the layers a little bit and mess with the, you know, the way that things kind of stick out of layers or that they subside underneath the layers. So what we're going to do is say that You can see I already have the stamps all lined up for this and everything. We have pieces of this this wreckage, this flotsam that ends up stuck in the sand as well. Like over the years, it's just been lodged in the sand a little bit. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna test this real quick because I don't know the answer and I'm learning as you're learning. We're going to flatten this to the background and see if the shadow stays. And it did. So what I'm actually going to do is take that out, get rid of the shadow. Because I don't really want a shadow on this piece right now. What we're going to do is flatten it to the background, and we'll do maybe one more plank. I don't want it to be the same orientation, so we're going to change that to look like that. And when I think about it, so on my regular map, it's sticking out a different way, but I feel like the way that the waves would wash up on this piece is going to look a little bit different. So we're going to flatten this to the background too. And the way that we're going to brush over this is from the seaside first. So again, I apologize for my computer being upset with me. We're going to move the mouse over and just hope that it kind of plays nice. We'll go to the brush layer. Eventually. You can do it. All right. What is going on here? I'm going to try and see if it'll just let me poke at it with the pen. There we go. So again, I'm going to use partial opacity to kind of do what I need to do here. For whatever reason, the mouse is the piece that doesn't like working with me. The pen works pretty well. Like you're seeing right now, like I don't really have too much of a problem there. So we'll do the same thing on both of these. I want to make sure that they kind of feel like the same amount of, wet sand is built over time. And then what we'll do is kind of move up slowly with these pieces, because I don't want to keep going all the way up, but I do want to lose a piece of it as I work. So maybe a little bit more there. So yeah, you can kind of see it's just disappearing into the sand. It looks really nice that way. It ends up giving it that kind of natural feel. So I wonder why my computer is so angry at me. I have like iCloud that just randomly decides to start up. I'm going to have to try and figure out if there's a way that I can disable that. Because whenever that starts up, it ends up getting angry with me. Come on. All right, we're just going to zoom out for now. The next step is going to be to add a little bit more, liveliness to the map that you see so far. We're going to add some trees in a little bit, and those pieces of contraband. We'll put some stones around the cliffs of the coastal cave, just to kind of give it like a, it's been around for a while feel to it. But the first step is going to be making sure that I can even get to these stamps. So let's see, we're going to do a little bit of seaweed. So we'll put that over, again, if I can. We'll put some of these clumps over by the, come on. We're going to put these over here. Maybe some under, I want to move that under. So I'm going to take a risk with the, yep, perfect. Mouse looks like it's playing nice again. So yeah, we're going to do a couple of clumps over here. I spoke too soon. All right. And again, I like to move around a little bit when it comes to that kind of stuff. And we'll move over here and just put some clumps, just as if they've moved on to the beach itself. And let's see, what else do I want to do? So I want to add a little bit of kind of sea, like marine life in here. And what we'll end up doing is same thing as with these planks. You can see like the way that they naturally have it on this layer is the shell that you see kind of looks like it's covered up. Like it doesn't look like it's laying on the surface here. But if I put it in this little pool, what we're going to do is cover it up with that pool. You don't have to go crazy with it. You don't have to go to a different water layer or anything like that. You can still use the sand layer. We're still, at partial opacity. So if one thing you're going to have to do, of course, is move that stamp onto the background layer. So if I click on it and then flatten it to the background, then go to the brush and then start to paint over it, that's where you'll see that it ends up kind of under the water like that. So that gives it, again, a nice natural look there. I think I ended up using almost the same exact stamp as the official one that'll go out on Thursday. We'll maybe do one of these Nautilus shells, do the same thing, and this puddle over here. So we'll go back to the select layer, flatten that to the background, and then go to the brush layer and then paint over it a little bit. And that one I'm not going to go as crazy with. So at that point, let's move over to our barrels. This is going to be our contraband. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do this one. You can do like fallen barrels, stuff like that. I'm going to do a nice mix. We'll actually put it in this nice little crevice down here. Maybe we'll do 2 standing barrels, and we'll have the fallen barrel over here. And I'm going to shrink that one down a little bit just because I don't want it to be too crazy. And what we're going to do is, there's another stamp that I used. I can layer it. That's fine. So they've got this little rum label that we can take. We're going to shrink that down a decent amount. You're not even really going to see it like when you're playing the game. It's just, we know about it, and that's all that matters. So we're going to slap that right over top of the barrel. Just adds a little bit of character that you don't have on the barrel that the asset comes with, and that's fine. I mean, not everything needs that kind of stuff, so you don't have to worry too much about it. We're going to go back to those sharp rocks that we used, shrink them down, and then we'll kind of throw them on the map in a couple of places just to make it look, again, a little bit more natural. You don't want just bare areas on the map. And we'll do a couple of smaller stones. They have like this natural selection of stones here that will kind of mimic a little bit. That one doesn't quite look right because it's in the shadows a little bit. So what we'll do is kind of mess with the brightness of that one a little bit, so it looks like it's been, kind of covered by the darkness. Since we're using it anyway, we'll do something on the opposite side as well. But I want to use a small stone, so we'll do something like that and darken it even more. That looks good. And I don't want this side to be all left alone, so we're going to take one more of those sharp stones, shrink it down. That actually fits in really nice there. And let's see, we're at 52 changes. Computer's already getting angry at me, so we'll save it, and then we'll move on to the next little piece, which is going to be the buried treasure. So again, same thing as everything else. I like to hide things behind the layers. So I flatten everything to the background and then, find a new home for it. So what we'll do is same thing as my regular map. We've got these little palm trees that we're going to throw in there. I'm going to move it up a layer so it kind of hides these stones that we just put in. And this one, oh, that's too big. So I like the angle of that one, especially when you consider what the map that I've already made looks like. I want it to look a little bit different, so we'll do that. And then what we're going to do is grab the treasure chest, and that's a perfect size, I feel like. We're going to... I'm going to zoom that in so that when I see it flattening to the background, I see if the shadow layer is still there. And it shouldn't matter anyway because we're going to cover most of it up. So at this point, we're going to grab the other sand. Again, partial opacity because I want to give this a couple of passes. So what we'll do is kind of cover up most of the rest of that. I want like one little panel showing. And the reason for this is I kind of want players who are playing with the physical version of this map, or even the digital, whatever. I want them to kind of see that something's going on. And what we'll do is there's one other stamp that I kind of used on the regular map that kind of lets this, it kind of brings your attention to it a little bit. That's too opaque. So I'm going to move the transparency down a little bit. I'm going to play with the color a little bit too. Let's mess with the saturation a little bit. Kind of brings like a little bit of shine to that area, and I kind of want to see if, you know, people who are playing, if they notice that kind of thing. Might be a little too bright. Let's move that one more time. Yeah, kind of brings your attention to it a little bit. So if you're a player, you kind of look there. The game master certainly knows that something's there. So if the players kind of move through there, they can say like, oh, like, you know, when you're walking, the ground feels a little firmer here, things along those lines. That's pretty much it as far as what I did with the original map that I made. I certainly made, you know, variants and stuff like that. One of the variants was high tide. So everything that you see the wet sand go to, I moved the waves up to kind of reflect that. I put some, like a shark in the deeper water, things like that. And then the wet sand moves up past that at that point. So it kind of comes up a little bit further towards the cave, things of that nature. It hits my 4 point of interest kind of quotient. So it does what I want it to do there. Yeah, I mean, there's not too much else that I would do here except for maybe like those smaller stones. So we'll kind of dive into that. Let me see if I can find those stones easier. The mouse is getting angry at me again, so we'll go into it this way. Let's see. Where are you hiding? So it's probably not stone. Maybe it's rock. Yeah, I think it's these guys here. Small rocks, they'll do. And again, this kind of just adds a little bit of, you know, character to the map. You're going to see little guys like this from time to time. And just kind of throw these into wherever the other guys are. I don't want that too close to where we had the other one. You figure there's 11 random stamps. I don't want the ones that are so close to be seen over and over and over again. And especially since I already have this map done, and this is the second version of it, I might do some stuff to kind of carve this out and make it a different feeling. But I'll have to see what kind of speaks to me. Certainly this looks a lot like the other map that I made, so I don't know that I would use it in the same way. But maybe I would, you know, throw it out there as like a variation or something like that. It's not going to be the one that gets a sequel or anything along those lines, and that's perfectly fine too. But let's see. Yeah, let's throw some stuff up here too. So these should be automatically in the shadow. So they don't need to be kind of darkened. They're just, you know, naturally showing up that way. We'll throw some at the edges of these cliffs too. And you can kind of see like they naturally kind of form in the texture layer as well. Let's do 1 or 2 sharp rocks up here too. I want it to look not like concrete wall rubble or dwarven. We'll just use the ones that we've already used. So we'll grab this. That's a little too small, I think, but that's fine. Oh, you know what the problem is though? We had the color changed, so we're gonna grab this instead. I don't want to go too crazy with them. That ought to do. I don't want that above my grid though. So we're going to move that. We're going to change these so that they reflect that as well. They shouldn't be laying above the grid. I did earlier today a thing that I'm excited to show you either tomorrow or next week where I was playing with. So Inkarnate's really great. They have a lot of stamps, but certain stamps, it kind of baffles you that they don't have. So I was doing work on the castle map that I'm going to be kind of showing off. It'll be 2 weeks from now that map comes out. That's a map that I did for my D&D party years ago, and I don't have that map anymore. It's on a hard drive or a computer somewhere that I checked our storage unit. I checked the other big room upstairs that we have. Couldn't find it. So I'm kind of recreating it from memory from scratch. We're making it a little bigger because I was usually just doing it on like 8.5 by 11 paper and just printing out a couple of them and throwing them side by side. But the battle maps that we use, they're 36 by 18. So I've got a little bit more room to play with. I didn't want to leave blank spaces or anything. They didn't have, Inkarnate doesn't have like an armor stand, and it doesn't have paintings. So I was reminded of when I was younger, the big game that everybody played before World of Warcraft was Ultima Online. And there were some creative things that you could do there as well with layers. And I kind of took what my dad used to do. He used to make like aquariums in Ultima, and I kind of like thought that same way. Like, how can I use layers to reproduce those things that I want? And I'm real excited. At this point, I mean, we finished this up pretty quickly. Knowing which direction we were going, it made it a little easier. So I think for tomorrow's stream, we might go in that direction where we look at the stuff that I did for the castle map. And then I'll show you the stamps that I used. I'm going to kind of recreate that the same way that I did this, because most of the work that's already done for the castle map, I don't need to do anymore. But I want to show you techniques, show you what I did, give you an idea of what the map is going to entail. So we'll kind of go through the process again. It should be easy for me knowing which direction I'm going to be able to do those kind of things, but we'll get to that tomorrow. I am going to switch this over to the chat layer just in case anybody wants to talk shop, and we'll kind of go from there. So we're going to go over to the chat panel. You can see how sweaty I am in my my upstairs without any air conditioning or anything like that. Again, wiping my face off kind of does so much. I just kind of do what I do. So, I saw a chat for a second. What's on the docket today, sir? Pickledorf asks at at 7:48 when I'm done. Thank you very much, Matt. I appreciate that. So just in case anybody doesn't know, I'm talking to random people on the channel. Misery is my wife. Pickledorf is my brother. My chats are too big for the overlay. I can fix that. So what we'll do is grab the chat overlay. I was playing with this yesterday. It's all centered. I wonder if there's something that I can do to clean that up a little bit. But go ahead, say something again, Matt. See if it's a little bit cleaner there. You can say oogity boogity if you want. My Rafflecopter goes swah. It sure does. All right, I think there is pretty nice. And we'll clean it up if we have to. Let's see. We're going to lock some of these things in place. For me, it looks small. I've got like a 22-inch monitor, right? Everything, but on OBS, like it has like a smaller look to it and everything. But I think for everybody else who's watching the stream, zoomed in, it probably isn't too bad. So yeah, Matt, we are kind of wrapped up as far as the stream part of things today. But tomorrow we'll be back. We'll be doing the I think we're going to jump ahead 2 weeks. We're going to do the Forbidden Keep, which you were a player in. So we're going to do a couple of those things. Oh, happy birthday to Reggie. Reggie is Matt's pupper. All right, let's see. So it looks like there's a ton of people in the stream right now, but I'm only seeing 3 viewers. So it's deceptive. I'm not sure who's all here, but I want Dino Nuggets in a swimming pool. I don't need this glove on anymore. So yeah, it's kind of fun. Now I have 2 coastal cave maps. I don't think it's not going to make as much sense for the Forbidden Keep to have 2 of the same map lying around, but at least this way it's distinct enough, I feel like, where you could go either way with this. I don't know, to what effect. I don't know that we're going to sell both maps, but it can be a variant on the Patreon. So for anybody who's looking at this later on Twitch or is catching it on YouTube later, we do every Thursday we drop one of our maps on Patreon, the free level gives you the map that you just saw, but it's low res. There's a $2 level where per month you get between 2 and 4 maps, probably more now, to be perfectly honest, since Matt and I are both working on these things. And those will be the high res versions of those maps. So for $2 you get between 2 and 4 maps in high res that are gridded or non-gridded, your choice. And at the $5 level, you get a bunch of variants. At this point on the Patreon, in fact, let's take a trip over there real quick. Let's see. I'm going to switch back over to the screen share for a second once I get it up and running. I'll drop you over onto my Patreon real quick. And let's bring this over to regular recording again. So, move the microphone one last time. So here you can see the maps are kind of the first thing that we feature. So it's the very first pin that we have up top, and then right here in the beginning you can see how many maps we've made as of whenever. So later this week we're going to drop our 22nd battle map, which is this coastal cave map, and at that point we will have 80 variants of our maps. So a little over 4 on average. We do some pretty cool things with the maps, I think. Considering we're not professionals by any means, we have a lot of fun with it. We do a lot of cool things. Let's see a couple of sneak peeks. So we've got that mountain ascent that we did last week or 2 weeks ago. We've got, this is the version that we kind of showed on stream. So this is that low res version. We've got the Savannah Hideout, which I don't think I showed on stream. So this is kind of some people's first look at it. And then going back, we've got Matt's Tavern. There's just a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, so we've got a lot of stuff planned. I've got stuff planned out through the rest of the year for sure. Like I said, the zigzagging pattern sure helps because at that point I know I'm going to be doing a map that I'm familiar with. I have the stamps that I'm familiar with. I have kind of like a template to work with, and it's kind of like, it feels a lot like building like a Zelda map in some ways, because you're just shifting one screen to the side or down or up, and then just building out from there. Like there's a logic to it that kind of appeals to my caveman brain a little bit. And by the time I'm done with the familiar stuff and I go into something new, it gives me a little bit more of like a refresher for my brain. So the way that our schedule is going to go, let me pop onto my cell phone real quick. We'll head back over to chat. So let me throw this over here. Try not to spill my water all over my desk. So yeah, so the keep is going to be next week. We'll work on the keep tomorrow. I'll show you a little bit more of the maps tomorrow and next week. And then there's a map that we did like probably November of last year called the Summoning. I'm going to do one map south of that. And then the first map that we're going to be releasing in August, at least for me, is going to be a tavern that we made in a town called Versailles. Wow, I'm sweating up a storm. I look so silly. Yeah, so it was a tavern called King's Charter, which my players spent a little bit of time in. I made like some fun little rumors and everything for them, so they were able to explore this humongous town that we had built, and it's going to get even bigger once we bring it into Inkarnate. So we'll kind of see how that all goes. But that's kind of it for me rambling for now. So I'm going to leave the chat up for a couple more minutes if anybody wants to chat. I'm playing it like I've got tons and tons and tons of fans and followers and stuff like that. I know that I don't, but it helps me to kind of conceptualize for the future what it's going to be like when I have, the people who are talking a little bit more. So it feels awkward, but it feels right at the same time. So I'm just going to hang out here. I might turn off the webcam so I'm just not hanging out here looking like an idiot. So we'll go to, there we go. Now I don't look so silly. You don't get to see sweat pouring down my face or anything. I do want a chalky milk. She said that she was almost going to say that yesterday, and I'm so pleased that she said it now. All right. This actually went a little bit longer than it usually does. 54 minutes is typically how long these usually run for us, so we're actually going a little bit over. I'm going to try and, at least for a little while, make sure that the videos are less than an hour long. So if we do get like really excited, if we have a cooler day and I'm not melting up here, what I might do is run longer than the hour long that we usually do, but I'll cut the streams in half. So I'll start kind of like an intermission, stop, start recording again, same kind of concept. But I feel like that's probably it. That's enough for us to do for now. So I am going to cut this over to the Until Next Time panel, and then next time is going to be tomorrow. We'll be looking at some castle stuff and just some fun little ways to break some of the stamps that Inkarnate gives you. I'm sure that over time they're going to give you a lot of cool stuff, but at least for now, I needed a little bit more finesse, and I'll show you some cool stuff that I was able to do. So until next time.